And welcome back to Fresh Outlook, everybody. I'm TWB. Well, with March Madness in the air, it's estimated that the NCAA will take in over $700 million throughout the course of the tournament. That's what I said, $700 million. So the question is big money ruining college sports? Take a look.
Each year, March Madness drives Americans to packed stadiums and blaring TV sets to cheer on their favorite heroes in college basketball. It's a big tradition and even bigger business. According to one estimate, the NCAA takes in over $700 million during the tournament, with TV deals and corporate endorsements all adding to the pot. And then there's the gambling, $12 billion wagered in only 3 weeks. But it's not just a seasonal thing. At a top-ranked school, revenue from athletics can surpass $100 million a year. And while not all programs make a profit, spending for sports is on the rise at universities across America. Is big money ruining the game? Should student players now get paid like the pros? And in an era of tuition hikes and academic cutbacks, is it fair to be shelling out more for college athletics? These are just the beginning of a riddle that many sports fans want unraveled.
Well, these numbers are staggering. I had no idea it was this astronomical. We heard it's $700 million, $12 billion in gambling. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yohuru, let's start with you. What do you think of these numbers? Is big business and all this money ruining the sport and the spirit of college sports in general?
Has been for a long time, and I think it's interesting now that this question has come to the fore, primarily because we're seeing so many problems with universities in terms of meeting the needs of their students.
Right.
The cutbacks that we're seeing in academic programs, and so now the question becomes, what's going on with college athletics? But this issue's been around for a while and framed in exactly this way. So much revenue is generated. What do these student athletes get out of this in exchange for all the money that they're making for these universities?
I mean, glory, but that's a short term, except for maybe the ones that do go on to the NBA. But I feel like they should be getting a lot more, Jackie.
Well, I think in the big schools where they're making a lot of money off the athletic programs, yes, I think they should be getting a lot more. It's very, very difficult for a student to try to be a student and to get up at 4 a.m. and go to practice and get out there and do their games every weekend. However, I don't think that they're suffering that much because they also get, look, they get tuition, they get room and board, and then they have a chance to go on to the big leagues. So that's something to consider.
So tuition and room and board is enough?
Well, if tuition and room and board is about $50,000 a year, that's what you're getting. Do I think it's enough? No, but I think that they're getting a chance to go on further, and you know, that's going to be their career.
But look at how much money the NCAA is taking in. Look how much money the colleges themselves are taking in. I mean,
I think you have to look at
the piece of the pie be a little more evenly divided?
I think on the bigger schools where they're making money off these programs, absolutely. I think on the smaller schools, when you have the students actually paying money to support these programs, you have to look at that a little differently.
Okay. Dee Dee, what do you think?
I think it's fantastic. I think everything is good about it. Actually, the money that's brought in, great. I mean, what's wrong with that? You know, people want to gamble, they're going to do their thing. That's fine. That's always happened. It's going to continue. That's their own money. But, you know, I think it's wonderful to have the team spirit, and I think the March Madness is a lot of fun, and it's really wonderful for economic development. When I tell you that these cities, well, Indianapolis just had a big game last night in my home area. They made a bundle, the city. It's really wonderful, and just good team spirit and all the way around. And you know, University of Florida just gave $6 million back to the university. So it's not always a one-way street, and I think a lot of good things with this tournament.
Do you think these players should be paid?
That's the problem for me, is that it seems that so many other entities are benefiting, including the towns, and that's wonderful. What bothers me to a certain level is that some of these students expect that if they go on to these elite institutions, some of these great schools, they'll have an opportunity to go to the pros. We know the numbers of students that actually make the transitions to the pros is relatively small.
Very small.
Then you see some of these student athletes, and quite frankly, let's be clear, we've all experienced this, who make it to the pros, but they can't put a sentence together in an interview, but they've gone to some of the best, most elite institutions in the country. That's a problem for me. So really, what are they getting? I think it's a question that universities have to face as an entity and say, you know, what is the quality of instruction that these young people are getting? To say that things are available to them and they have a free college tuition, not enough.
Right. What about this idea of their educations being sacrificed? The sport is paramount.
They're adults.
Is that really how it should be?
They're adults. They either pick their education or they pick their career. If they go to their career and they make millions of dollars, so be it. it. I mean, they really should try to finish their education first, but you know, that's their decision.
But not everybody goes to the NBA, so you have all these guys on top teams. Not everyone's getting to that next level who have sacrificed in education, haven't gotten paid, so where do they go?
And look, I mean, Yohuru and I are both college professors, and back me up on this. Have you not seen players come through your classes who are actually pushed through by the athletic department?
But not all, though. I mean, a lot of these kids are getting great educations. I mean, a lot of the coaches are very, very strict about the GPA, and they're some of the best students.
Yeah, but not
and they're also having practice, and they have more responsibility than some of the students because they have to go to practice every night and they have to keep their grades up. So, you know, I think that we should applaud all these students. They do a great job.
The problem is the coaches are extremely well compensated. So we look at some coaches that make multi-millions of dollars coaching, and then the players themselves aren't. We don't talk about the booster problem within institutions where essentially you have boosters that pay, give kids money under the table. I understand that the integrity of this was to ensure that you had a truly amateur league. And so what you'd want to ensure is the integrity of the games. The problem is when you look at the injury factor, when you look at what you were describing, Jackie, in terms of the fact that a lot of these kids don't get the quality education that they deserve because they're really being, the sports is really being pushed more than anything else, that's a problem. There are some good things that come out of this. I think gender equity and athletics has been one of the positive things, but there's a lot more negative than positive.
But do you think big money was the reason why the Penn State scandal was silent for so long? It just, was never brought to the forefront? Was big money to blame? Dee Dee, you're shaking your head.
I don't think so. I mean, Penn State, that was just a disaster. I mean, the whole thing, people not coming forward. I mean,
yeah, but it was a
very,
disaster
very
because
sad.
of all the money they were making and the business.
I don't think the business part's bad, though. I mean, you have to have
not bad, but look at the scandal that should have come out years ago.
Well, but that doesn't mean that that's the reason that it didn't come out. Perhaps it was, perhaps it was not. But I don't think that you should blame boosters. Now, if they give the money on the table, I mean, that's dishonest and that's illegal. You're not supposed to do that. But there are people who give a lot of money to universities, and they have new stadiums, and they have new libraries, and they have a lot of wonderful things. So I think the athletic programs are good as long as they're monitored, not abused. But so many of these students do a wonderful job, and I just think it's a time we should applaud them and not look at the negatives.
But my point is that we don't lump the big schools and the small schools together. Because Penn State, for instance, because they had that big football program, I think that scandal was pushed under the rug a little bit for a long time. Whereupon if you were at a smaller school, I think that would have come out.
Right.
I agree with you, but TWB, I go back to your point. Penn State is the house that Paterno built. And easily one could look at that situation and see that the university didn't want to sacrifice or compromise the strength of that athletic program by dealing with the Sandusky scandal. My other problem is with the NCAA in terms of how they treat these athletes. Students sign contracts that say, for example, that the NCAA owns their image forever and throughout the universe, which means that these kids, if they make an amazing play, 10 years later, they can still be shown, those can be shown on highlights, they can be sold for video game rights. All
but they should own it. I don't see why you think that's a bad idea. I mean, because they played during the NCAA, I mean, what's wrong with that?
Just that the kids receive some type of compensation, some type of residual
compensation. Their compensation is they are played, they got an education, they go on to the pros or they don't. I don't see a problem with that.
But they're using their images like they're pro athletes and reaping huge financial gains. And look at the guys doing all the work. I do want to mention, did you guys hear about Chris Rock's quote about comparing college sports to slavery? He said, college sports are no different than slavery. These kids should be paid and allowed to get an education for themselves and their families and for the rest of their lives. Black people not making money from college sports is like Arabs not making money from oil. He says it's insane.
It's terrible.
You disagree?
Absolutely, I disagree. They're in college. It's college sports. It's pro when you get paid. There's a big difference. I mean,
but everyone else is getting paid but them.
Because they're in college. They're students. It's the type of game it is. I mean, it runs the whole game. If it's college hoops, it's college hoops. If you're getting paid, well, then get out and go pro or something.
I think I feel like it's just a technicality that's college because this is like the Super Bowl. It's bigger than the Super Bowl.
Look, you're going by the assumption that academics come over athletics. And that is the assumption. Not even assumption. It's the rule in the university. But how many times when I was sitting there, when I was teaching at Manhattan College, when the Manhattan basketball team was just skyrocketing, and one of my players would get a phone call from Bobby Gonzalez, who was getting $300,000 a year to coach that basketball team, saying, Jason, get out of class now. And I'm like, okay, Jason, tell Bobby to give me some of his money, I'll let you know.
Look, they don't have to play. Look, they don't want to get played. They don't want to play because they don't get paid. Sorry about their luck. Fine. Don't play ball then. Don't play college ball. I think it's a ridiculous thing to ask for. I mean, you're a student playing basketball. It's an exciting time. It is a wonderful thing to be on a college team. And if it's not good enough, fine, move on.
Here's the problem too, and I'll be very quick, is look at what's happening now with high school.
We want to hear what you have to say.
High school students now who are being recruited out of high school, which some sports are saying we've got to put provisions in place to make sure that this doesn't happen. You don't have a LeBron James that goes straight from high school to the NBA.
Right.
If we don't do something about compensating these athletes, or at least to a certain extent ensuring that if they're injured, there's some way that they benefit from playing, we may inadvertently undermine college athletics anyway.
Right.
Because there's no incentive for the students to go on to university if there's a straight pipeline.
What about
to
the love of the
sports.
game, and what about, you know, being there for university and enjoying what you're doing and getting a free ride? Usually they have their tuition paid for. What's wrong with that?
If
Having a great
if they're gonna be able
education
to make
and being in a wonderful sport.
millions of dollars with a straight jump from high school to the NBA,
Right.
why
Well, then
even
let them do it. That's up to them. They're
Right.
adults.
What do you think about sort of state legislatures? You mentioned a little bit of lawmakers being influenced. You know, you have a big team making a lot of money. Lawmakers are involved. You know, are invited to great seats, all the perks, and then all of a sudden there's a little bit of exchange going on. You know, laws being kowtowed to affect sort of subsidies in colleges. I mean, it seems a little, I don't know, there's a little bit of conflict from my perspective. What do you think?
It's dirty.
It's
and
dirty,
it's
right, that's
corrupt.
the
And I
word.
think, you know, again, if we look at it objectively, you want some type of regulation. I understand where Dee Dee's coming from, and I agree with you. I think 50 years ago, if you looked at college athletics, there was this element of rah, go team, win one for the Gipper. Those days have passed.
It's not
College
true.
athletics
I don't
is
know why you're
big-
saying
big
that. Have you been
business.
watching the March Madness? I mean, we're all thrilled with that. It's such a wonderful American sport. I mean, I don't understand why you think it's a bad
totally
thing.
disagree with you.
No,
We're
but he
not.
just did.
No. He's saying that still exists.
Right.
However, now it's grown. It's different from what it used to be. Now
Right.
it's big fat money,
Right.
and these kids are being sacrificed.
What
down
about the
line.
gambling?
Completely
You know, they
agree.
mentioned all that billions in gambling over this NCAA or throughout the year. I mean, is this become too much? I mean,
Which is in many instances compromise the integrity of the game.
Yes.
And again, people don't want to deal with the cheating element to this, the money handshakes, the boosters. These are all things that have to be cleaned up. I agree with you, again, that Penn State is not entirely, but partly a tragedy of college athletics in the state that it's in today. The corruption
right, because
that's
money just
associated with it.
overshadows everything. I mean, I was watching the game last night when Michigan won. I mean, so many people were going crazy. I think it's because the reason being there's a little bit more than love of the game. A lot of people are making a lot of money off these games. I mean, I know we live in a free enterprise system, but is it time for some reform, or should we just let things go the way they've been going?
It's overtime for reform.
Overtime.
I
overtime.
disagree.
Okay.
I think it's
Final
great.
word,
I think it
disagree.
works. I mean, and you're always going to have the bad apples, and that's not good. You know, and the students should always come before the money, but that money does help the students and it helps the universities. And the tournaments are wonderful. And those folks you were talking about in the stands, a lot of those people there are paying money to get there. You know, so the fans, you know, it's good for team spirit, and it's good for, I think, a good message for the kids and the universities and, you know, the people playing. I mean, they get a lot out of it. So I don't think this is bad for the players or bad for the universities or the communities. It's
I don't
good
know.
for
If I
everyone.
was someone on the court, you see everyone bringing in, you know, the green dollar bills, and you're just getting glory for a week. Like, what?
But
all
that's
this work?
great glory. It's a big deal. The rah-rah days. I don't know. I'm from Indiana, so I love it. So we're all rah-rah all the time through this. So, you know, I guess we're still old-fashioned there, but we still believe in the team spirit and the Hoosiers being my favorite movie. So I think it's still there, and I think we shouldn't be you know, negative about it.
Final thoughts, Yohuru?
In an age where you commodify everything, then you have to pay for your rah-rahs.
You know, and speaking as a college professor, my big thing are my students, and I want to see them succeed. And I've seen more than one crash and burn after they went to the pros.
But look at all athletes who go forward.
Well,
they
sure,
have
but
wonderful
that's
jobs.
a
It's
small
not really.
percentage.
You have a lot of students
Sure
who
it
do very well because they had to be disciplined, they had to go to class, and they had to play the game, and
But
they
you're
end up better
assuming they went
people.
to class.
Right,
Of
right,
course.
right. What is class? All right, guys, we're out of time. Thank you, though. We can continue the conversation during the break. When we come back to Fresh Outlook with Tax Day right around the corner, oh gosh, April 15th already, we'll talk a little bit about some celebrity tax woes. What is going on? Stay with us. That's next on Fresh Outlook.